Have you ever wondered what it would be like to never touch the ground for almost an entire year? Imagine eating, drinking, sleeping, and even raising your young, all while soaring high above the clouds. It sounds impossible, but there is a creature on this planet that does exactly that. Meet the common swift, a small, unassuming bird with one of the most extraordinary superpowers in the entire animal kingdom. It can stay airborne for 10 straight months without ever landing. And when it finally does come down to Earth, it does so for only one reason. The common swift, known to scientists as Apis apis, is a true master of the sky. At first glance, it looks a little like a swallow, sleek and dark with long curved wings that slice cleanly through the air. But swifts are not swallows at all. In fact, they are more closely related to hummingbirds. These birds spend nearly their entire lives on the wing, and their bodies have been shaped over millions of years to be perfect flying machines. Their wings are remarkably long, while their legs are tiny and weak, because a swift was simply never meant to walk.
For decades, scientists suspected that swifts could stay airborne for extraordinarily long stretches. But proving it was another matter entirely. How do you track a bird that never lands? The answer finally came with modern technology. Researchers attached tiny data loggers, lightweight devices that record light levels, to the backs of swifts before their migration. When the birds returned the following year, the scientists downloaded the data and made a discovery that stunned the world. These birds had not touched the ground for 10 months. 10 months of nonstop flight. That is roughly 300 days of living entirely in the air. The biggest question, of course, is how? How does a bird sleep while flying at speed? The answer is both fascinating and a little strange. Swifts have mastered the art of sleeping with only half their brain at a time. Scientists call this unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. One hemisphere of the brain rests, while the other stays fully alert, keeping one eye open and the wings beating steadily. They can also climb to incredible altitudes, sometimes over 10,000 feet, and glide for short bursts, riding rising currents of warm air. During these moments, they slip into a kind of light slumber, just enough to recharge before continuing their endless journey through the sky. Sleep is not the only challenge. Swifts must also eat and drink without ever coming down to Earth, and they have solved this brilliantly. They catch thousands of tiny insects and spiders right out of the air, snapping them up in mid-flight. They even drink by skimming the surface of lakes and rivers mid-flight, dipping their beaks for just a fraction of a second before climbing back into the sky. Even more remarkable, they bathe in flight too, gliding through gentle rain and mist to keep their feathers clean. Every essential act of life performed entirely on the wing. So why do they do this? Why spend 10 long months in the sky? The answer comes down to survival and energy. The ground is full of danger, cats, snakes, and countless predators. By staying airborne, swifts avoid nearly all of their natural enemies. And by riding warm columns of rising air called thermals, they can glide for enormous distances while burning very little energy. For a swift, the sky is not just where it lives. The sky is its shelter, its dining room, and its safest refuge from a dangerous world below. Their journey is nothing short of epic. Common swifts that breed in Europe fly all the way to Africa for the winter, crossing seas, deserts, and towering mountain ranges. And they do almost all of it without ever stopping. When you consider that a single swift may travel millions of miles across its lifetime, the sheer scale of it becomes almost impossible to grasp. But even these tireless travelers must eventually land. There is one thing and one thing only that brings a swift down to Earth: the need to nest and raise young. Swifts mate for life, returning to the very same nesting site year after year, often in the cracks and holes of old buildings and cliffs. And here is a curious fact. Their legs are so short and their feet so small that once they are on the ground, they struggle to take off again from a flat surface. That is why they almost always nest high up, where they can simply drop into the open air and let gravity do the rest of the work.
The common swift is a living reminder of how much wonder still exists in the natural world. A creature no bigger than your hand, flying through storms, sleeping on the wind, and crossing entire continents without ever pausing to rest on the ground. We humans, with all our machines, can barely keep an aircraft in the sky for a single day. Yet this little bird does it for 10 months at a time, effortlessly, beautifully, and without ever once looking down. So the next time you see a dark, scythe-winged shape racing across the summer sky, stop and watch. Because you are not just looking at a bird. You are looking at one of the greatest travelers our planet has ever known. A tiny creature that turned the entire sky into its home.